Hey, it is Friday, June 1st. We're into the last month of the first half of the year, I guess. And it's cooking here in Northern California. Well, it's going to be 85. That's nearly cooking. But it has been a fun week. As many of you know, I've been lately putting out songs that are some of my, just songs that grab me for one reason or another. And I think I'm going to continue to do that, although I gotta say, it's more than once in the last month. A song that I put out, turns out, got recommended even between the time I shot it and put it out. And that happened this week. I took a look last week at the recommend a lesson list and was surprised to see a lesson I had just shot last week. Out there. Now I'm sure everybody was thinking we're kind of on the same page, and part of it was because a few weeks ago we had this, and I think it got everybody on the wow, what else is out there by David Bowie that he might do? And sure enough, The Man Who Sold the World popped onto my radar, and I thought, you know what, that's a pretty cool tune. Interesting chord progression, interesting little, and that's one of the neat things about Bowie is his songs. Generally fairly simple, but generally a lot of chords and a lot of what I call oblique or abstract. Oblique is usually the term I use with this, which is probably the wrong word, probably means nothing here. Key changes, where all of a sudden he just jumps to someplace weird. Plays the wrong chord and then makes it work. So, great songwriter. Anyway, so that was one of the tunes that came out this week for our Target members, The Man Who Sold the World. And then another one that has been, well, for a long time, it was right at the top of the heap of the recommend a lesson lists, and that was because it was combined with, I'm going to draw a blank. There was a Tangerine. That was it. So we had a song leading the pack that was a request for Tangerine and Going to California. So you can't put two songs in one thing. That messes up my whole, the time-space continuum, and Doc Brown just like frowns upon it. So anyway, finally got around to Going to California. One of the things that had sort of prevented me from getting to that sooner was that there are so many, multiple guitars, probably multiple mandolins, and reducing it down to one guitar part was a bit of a challenge. But finally, just put my mind to it and came up with something that I was really happy with, and I hope everybody's enjoying and working on. Going to California, always good to have another double drop D song in the song bank. So. And what was the last song? Oh, this was actually, yeah, this was today. Been listening to a lot of Dylan stuff. Notice I think I did a Dylan song last week, or the week before. Tambourine Man, I believe it was. And that made me start thinking, well, what else is out there by Dylan that people like to play? I can only think of like maybe a couple hundred. And Tweeter and the Monkeyman from one of my favorite albums, the Traveling Wilburys album, was one that I thought people would enjoy messing around with, a little bit of slide stuff and things. So that was our big three Target songs this week. Had a couple of flies on the wall, brothers-in-law. Where does the plural part of that come? Anyway, fly on the walls, fly ons the wall. Stop. Relieve me. Anyway. One was with Kevin, working on When the Sun Goes Down, and then, oops, I put the pick down just in time, just when I needed it. And that was, of course, Neil Young, Heart of Gold, that Fred has been working on. And really having a tough time, as you can see if you watch that one, on getting that hammer-on to sound exactly right. Biggest key you got to remember with hammer-ons and pull-offs is don't do them too fast, because your left hand tends to want to be ahead of your right hand. And when you do, with your right hand's usually in control of the rhythm, your left hand has to have done its job already before the time that the note is supposed to be hit. So you don't want it to sound like this. No musical value there. Stunk. Fix it. Anyway. Common problem with hammer-ons and pull-offs is doing them too quickly, when this hand, all of a sudden your left hand has to think like a right hand, which is, this is where the rhythm of the song comes from. Okay, but I don't want to turn this into a lesson. A little advice is always good, though, I'm sure. So, so that was our two fly episodes this week. Had something I forgot to mention last week, because we had a couple of really cool things with from Guitar Showcase with Jack van Breen, and those were taking a look at some Gretsch guitars, the Country Club and the Tennessee Rose. So neat Gretsch. Maybe I always wanted one because I liked the looks of Neil Young's White Falcon, but that from that where's that out, the second album? Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere. Great picture of him playing one of these classic guitars that there aren't many of, and they're quite expensive, way out of my price range. And besides, it's an electric guitar with a big old tremolo unit and stuff like that, and you'd need the feathered coat with the leather coat with the tails all over it and stuff like that, and that I think he's wearing in that picture. Anyway, too many Neil Young thoughts today, I guess. But the anyway, and then so that's what we had. So last week had a couple of really cool things from Jack in our vintage series, and I again really want to thank those guys for letting us come in there and invade their territory. And this week something cool came out. He looked at another classic American builder, had been American in at first, and then kind of went offshore for a while, and now is back under the control of big companies, but building great guitars, and those are Guild guitars. So. Which reminds me of John Denver. That was the other guitar I wanted, a Guild 512. I don't know what I'd do with this jumbo 12 string. I think John's was a 212, but I remember seeing this big old rosewood one that somebody out there can set me straight on John Denver's guitars. Go ahead and weigh in on that. But he played these big old jumbo Guild 12 strings, and in the early 70s, that was another guitar I wanted, but also still out of my price range at the time. Probably still is, because those things are nice. I mean, the old ones. But they're building some great guitars. So we've got a few things from Jack coming up. We had a little bit of one this week, and there's a continuation of it, I think, probably on tap for next week. And then I've been having a lot of fun with my friend Steve Rose and helping him kind of get the listening post happening. So I hope you guys are enjoying what's going on with the listening post, because sometimes he'll do he'll talk about a band that I'm sure you've heard of and maybe don't know too much about. Obviously, going further back, we had Fleetwood Mac, and then we had one that you probably didn't know too much about. That was the Mermen. And last week, which I forgot to mention last week too, somehow Friday news got away from me last week, and next week is going to be even worse. It might not even happen because of busy week, graduation, trips, all kinds of stuff. So I might have to do the Friday news on Wednesday next week. We'll see what happens. But anyway, so Steve had, of course, done Fleetwood Mac and then the Mermen, and then jumped back into, and I can't even think of how to play any other songs right now. They're all just standard blues things. Not with that, though. A little bit more of that kind of rhythm. That was Canned Heat. A band tied to this guy. So I think Steve mentions that in his article, but if not, what is the connection between what you just heard me butcher there and Canned Heat? So Canned Heat was last week. This week, I think we had somebody that I would venture to say very few people on our site have ever heard of or know anything about. A LA rock band that featured a Cambodian singer because they wanted to sound a little bit like stuff from Cambodia. Dengue Fever. So if you want to know a little bit more about an unusual band that was around for a little while and get Steve's take on it, be sure to check out this week's episode of The Listening Post, all about Dengue Fever. Dengue, he says as he's trying to not swallow and choke. I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening next week, but I can't. And because it's always subject to change. So, but I can tell you that the lessons I have been working on have been really, really fun for me, and that makes them. I hope that's going to make them fun for you too, and I hope people enjoyed the parts of going to California where we talk about improvising and things like that. So I'm trying to work in more of that kind of stuff to get people outside of their to step outside the boundaries that they think surround them, and that's a really important part of playing the guitar. So another philosophical piece of advice today. Okay, I think I have to stop talking and get back to playing. Oh, I have a really cool, never mind, another fly on the wall thing coming up, that where we're working on some fairly complicated songs and trying to make sure that you never play them the same way twice. Remind me of one last thing I need to bring up, because the song I was butchering there was something I first heard from a record that one of my students brought me in the early 70s. It wasn't Memories, it might have been. Anyway, it was an album by Doc Watson. And this week, Doc finally went to his next gig and is left us here on Earth with some just incredible songs and memories, and hugely influential musician. And I know some people around the world maybe were not as much on top of him as we were, but I do want to say, Doc, thanks for everything, and rest in peace, man. He was great. So that's it. I will see you next week.